y'all.
Hey!
Welcome to Southern Sober and Sassy. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that our last video we created, it got lost in the cloud. I was on the phone with Apple for 45 minutes trying to find it. We could not. So we're about to recreate the peace. The peace. You can't have peace if all your pieces of the puzzle you're not implementing and putting it together. Okay? So I'm going to do one more check and make sure. And yes, it is recording. We got it. Okay. So to kind of capsize is tip over. So to kind of recap, what we're talking about is what are the pieces in your life that you need put together to have peace?
First thing that comes to mind is what pieces do I need to get rid of? That's the first piece. The first thing that comes to my mind. In early sobriety, my sponsor, my very first homework was give me 25 reasons you want to get sober, minimum. And the other homework was what are the priorities in your life in order of importance? And I was like, oh, well, let me count the ways, Miss Ego. I was like, well, I got all these priorities and people and places and things, and all these people depend on me, and all those people have written me off. In reality, my brain thought that they all needed me. Anyway, me and my grandiose thinking. So I made this long list with about 20 things on it. I was all happy. I went over there to Mamie Avenue on that Sunday evening. I pushed it across the table. I was so happy. And she took that list and marked off all of them except 4 and said, these are not priorities. You only think they are. And your ego tells you that they are priorities. Another thing she told me was half of what she marked off were other people's problems. Now, none of that was my business. Well, she busted my ego. I mean, she handed me a whole pie. Humble pie, a whole pie, not just a piece. But so anyway, it was for me. I'm answering the question in reverse. I'm like, what do I need to get rid of first, then to be able to focus on what matters most. And I have learned that less is more. I used to have 50 responsibilities. Now I have about 5. And I don't want 6. And I don't want 7. And I don't want 8. And my sponsee, she taught me something. She said, I don't want to is an acceptable answer. And I was like, oh, now I like that. It's not cocky. It's not vain. It's not grandiose. It's honest.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to do this? Hey, can you take on this responsibility? Hey, can you go here and do that and do this and do that? I don't really want to. I also have to know to not overextend myself. The way that I think now is extreme opposite, Amy. Extreme opposite. I'm blown away at how simplified my life is. I didn't know what peace was. Peace and serenity and faith and all those nice, pretty words. They would talk about that all the time in early sobriety. And I'm like, I don't want that shit in my life. This was early sobriety, don't get me wrong. I'm not making light of it because it's a big deal. But I just just wanted to know how to not go to the dang liquor store.
Yeah, and those words were like as shining bright lights, and it's like, first of all, it's like they're too big for me to deal with.
Absolutely.
It's too big. I just want, exactly right. I don't want to go to the dope dealer. I don't want to I don't want to pick up, and I don't want to go get alcohol, or I don't want to go get vodka to numb because I don't understand.
Right. The understanding came in the doing. And
yes,
I thought those words were boring. Faith and serenity and peace, and you know, I had lived a total chaotic life. There was no way for me to wrap my brain around that and to understand what peace was. Now, it's gonna make me cry. I guard my peace like you don't even know. I guard my heart. I guard my home. I guard my mind, my soul, my health. Yeah, it's total opposite. Total opposite.
I love how you said, I have, instead of worrying what pieces I need to have peace, I look at what pieces I need to remove, which makes, when we pour out that puzzle, and imagine your life as a puzzle. When we pour that box of the way I do it is finding a table big enough to do it with, and taking like the board, the table's got to be big enough, and then I pour the pieces out, and then I set the box up so I can see the picture. And you know what, I realized that when you said that, it's like I remove all the pieces that aren't the borders. I set them aside, and I start to go to town working on the borders because I need a safety. This is my borders. These are my boundaries. Borders are my boundaries. And so when I put the boundaries, my borders, all neat and pretty, then the rest of the pieces can come as I'm building up my piece. And having that boundary, borders around my life as the puzzle pieces, and taking my time and putting together, because my brain goes faster than my body ever will because of, my ADHD. And so for me, knowing that I have that border of pieces provides me the peace, because I know that I have something to work with.
When I started out in early sobriety, I had probably 250 pieces, let's say, to a puzzle. And then here comes step 3. You turn your will and your life over to the care of God. That puzzle is no longer my puzzle. The plan is no longer my plan. It's God's puzzle. And God He doesn't want 250 pieces. He may want 100 pieces. And then it may change to where I get just 50 pieces. But He will, you either believe step 3 or you don't. Step 3, it took me a long time to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Or I didn't know what it meant, and I kind of still don't, Amy. But I do know that when I sat down in early sobriety, poured out my box of puzzle pieces, and I looked at that box and saw what my life was going to be like, I was like, okay, cool, because I could control it. I could put those pieces together. I could put the border around it. But then here comes this God part. And God comes in and He wants a whole third of the puzzle. And so I get to arguing with God. Arguing with God is pointless. Just want to throw that out there. Yeah. And so God's puzzle and looking at God's box, the puzzle box of what God wants from me, it's not the same box.
No.
It's not my same box, and I'm like, what's going on? And bit by bit by bit, the more that I moved out of chaos, was I able to understand what peace was. And then I got peace. And then chaos arrived again, and then I was able to compare. Then I was able to say, okay, I know what peace is like now. And chaos is back all of a sudden, and I'd be calling the sponsor lady and be like, everything's chaotic, and no, and so I'd work through that and get my peace back, and things would, level back out and get stable again, and then it would get chaotic and blah, 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 and you just go back and forth. But eventually I realized just how precious peace was. The number one thing that kept me drinking was my jacked up thinking. I'm so thankful that I don't have that obsession going through my brain. Gotta have it, gotta have it, and when that got removed, it was kooky, and it was mysterious, and people can call it whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's gone, and I'm happy about it. And when I was able to realize that, shit changed. I got real serious about recovery, and I got very curious about God, because I was like, oh my God, this has happened to me. Anyway, there's my soapbox.
I love that, because acceptance, and that is the word that actually was the golden key for my peace and serenity. And you and I had a conversation, because I brought this to you last year, and you gave me that pamphlet and you said, read this. Just read it. And it's called Acceptance. And it was like, people can say it in different ways. Acceptance, let you, with Mel Robbins, her book, Let Them. But it's like, acceptance is accepting who I am today. Acceptance is accepting who others are today, and knowing that the pieces of my life, if I don't bring God into that equation, I will not have that peace.
No, not at all.
It'll still be the puzzle pieces with the tattered and the torn, and just wipe out that puzzle and let's start over. And you know what? That is the one thing that I just adore, is that if things are not working, God gives me permission to restart. If something's not working for me, or if I keep hitting that brick wall, which my stubbornness will lead me to brick walls all day long, my serenity will keep me from the brick walls. Mm-hmm. But the pieces of my life, fitting together, the only way they fit together is by having my higher power navigate the border, navigate the picture, navigate what pieces need to go where, and knowing that I'm human. And that right there, I am human. We are all human beings, and knowing that when things pop up in my life that disturb my peace, I don't have to pick up over them. I don't have to pick up a drink or a drug. I do pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I pick up the phone to call, to text. I pick up a book. I pick up a podcast. I pick up a meeting. And there's so many other resources now that I utilize, because my peace is, I love my peace.
Yep.
Getting up in the morning. First of all, getting up in the morning. I get up before the sun comes up. When I used to go to bed when it was just, coming up. That right there in itself, being able to pay my bills, that's a big one for me. Knowing that I'm able to help others, but when I help others, knowing that I can't fix it for them, and let them know in advance, this is. Here I have a suggestion. I have a strong suggestion. Whether they take it or not doesn't have to disturb my peace.
You know the kids puzzles that have they're like oversized pieces.
Yeah.
And there's about 10 pieces.
Yes.
That's how I keep my puzzle now. That's how I see my puzzle now. I break everything down to mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. Everything. Do I have peace with my body? For the most part. Do I have mental peace? For the most part. Do I have financial peace? Yes. Do I have emotional peace? Yes. For the most part, I am not dominated by my emotions anymore. That's at the top of the list. And do I have spiritual peace? You betcha. Man, I work hard for my spirituality. The emotional piece, it's just kind of like today. I was a little bit emotional today, but I'm not really quite sure why, and I was like, I feel like I could cry, which is kind of normal for me, but there's something tugging at me, but I don't know why. And as a result of that, I moved a muscle, changed a thought, and I went for a power walk to give me, that power walk gives me peace with my body, my mind, my emotions, my spirit, my soul, and if those 5 puzzle pieces are clicked in together, then it's all good in the hood. Sometimes God will come in and add 6 or 7 pieces to that puzzle. I have to make sure that I did not add those pieces, that God did. And it's a privilege and it's a blessing, and it's because when God adds pieces to the puzzle, he says, well done, my child. Here you go.
And that piece.
Well done.
You get that piece. The benefit of putting the pieces where they're supposed to be is it gives us peace.
In conclusion, there is a woman back in Nashville. I will never forget this. And it made such an impact on me. I kicked, screamed, cried, clawed, and dragged myself through early recovery, through those 12 steps, and I did the damn thing. I did it. And sometimes I did it loud, mad, sad. My sponsor said to me, I don't care how you do it, just do it. Do it crying, do it chopping down a tree, do it mad. I don't care how you do it, honey, just do it. But anyway, this lady back in Nashville, she said, Christy, I've worked hard for my happiness. If you want to work hard for your happiness too, I'll hang out with you. But if you're not going to work hard for your happiness, you can't have mine. And man, I just that's it, man. That's where I'm at. Recovery is so beautiful. I share it and I share it and I share it and I preach it from the hilltops. But I guard my peace. I guard my heart, man.
I appreciate you saying that because, you know, working with others is part of recovery for everyone. And, you know, I used to get all bent out of shape when I worked with someone and they stubbed their toe or broke, or relapsed. And I realized recently that those are not my puzzle pieces.
Right. Right.
I cannot allow their puzzle pieces being all scattered on the table
Yes.
for my puzzle pieces to get mixed up with those, mixed up in the insanity.
Yep.
And to steal my peace and know that, my puzzle is my puzzle. Everybody has their own puzzle in life, and I can share my experience, strength, and hope with them and do everything I can to help them. But if they don't want it, that's not because of me.
Right. Can't take it personally.
My ego used to tell me that all the time. Christy, I used to throw shit literally at the wall, pissed off when somebody I worked with relapsed. And God told me, he said, "Oh, honey, let me just sit you down and let me check your ego, because you, my friend, are not that powerful. You can do what you need to do for others in my direction and provide them with everything, but it's not your job to go in there and mess with their puzzle." Because when you mess with their puzzle pieces, you are robbing me of offering them that piece, but you're also robbing yourself of continued peace.
That's
because
so true.
You're not that powerful.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me recently, and I was proud of myself. I was very proud of myself.
You did good. You handled it differently. You handled it very confidently. You were kind, but you also knew that
it wasn't my puzzle.
It wasn't your puzzle. And, this was a situation, this was a pattern that had started to repeat itself, and you did not let that pattern start to repeat itself again. And you said, "I love you, but no," quicker.
Yeah. And I'm learning to say, "I love you, but no, that doesn't work for me." So, well, wrapping up, the pieces of the puzzle will provide us peace when those pieces of the puzzle are put down by our higher power.
Yep.
So, all right. It's Mother's Day weekend ahead. We hope you have a fabulous weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Mother's Day to our mothers. And we keep you all in our prayers virtually if you've lost a mother, or if you've lost a child and this is your first Mother's Day without, your own mother or a child. We uplift you in the name of Jesus and keep you in our prayers, and know that we're always here for you.
Yep.
You can reach out anytime. Mm-hmm. You can go. We have a Facebook page. We haven't really promoted our podcast yet because we're still working on it, but you can reach us. In the bottom, you'll see in this podcast information, you can reach out to info at pursuitofrecovery.com. You can address it Christy and Amy. If you want to speak to Christy directly, she will get that email as soon as you send it. But we're here for you. We love you. And we pray that you keep the pieces of your puzzle working on them so you get to keep your peace.
Yep.
All right. Y'all have a great weekend. Thank you for letting us share.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.